today's session, we are going to show you how SafeNet Trusted Access can protect any applications that you may have, including Windows Logon and Global Protect VPN. It is worth to mention that SafeNet Trusted Access is a fully cloud solution which does not require any footprint on premise. In this demo, we will focus on our pattern-based token called Gritcher. Before showing you how this token works, let us walk you through the journey of enrolling a token to a user and how even a user would onboard to this platform. If we look at the users at the start of this demo, we currently see 7 users. Now let's look at how we can add another user. For this, we need to open Active Directory Users and Computers, find the user we want to add, right-click on his name, add to a group, and in this example, we have 2 groups of interest we're synchronizing with the SafeNet agent. Those groups are the MFA exempt users and MFA secured users. We're going to add the user to the MFA secured user group. Once this is complete, we can now open the SafeNet synchronization agent to force a sync or wait 20 minutes for the sync to happen automatically. We run the sync agent as an administrator. Once it's opened, we want to stop and start the agent to force a sync. Now that the sync is running, we're just going to wait for it to complete. It may take a few seconds. Now that the sync is complete, we're going to verify that the user has been added to the portal. And we can confirm that the user that we previously added is now synchronized to the console. Next, we can look at how we can add a token to this user. Now that the user has been synchronized to the SafeNet Trusted Access console, let us look at how we can add a Gritcher token to this user. To do this, we need to go to the Extended Features menu and open the Assignment tab. This will open a new browser window to the token management console of the platform. We're now going to look for the user that we want to add a token to. There are a few ways to add a token manually. If we're going to add multiple users, we could simply click on the names and provision in bulk. For the sake of this exercise, we're going to use the other method by clicking on the user profile. This opens all the user details, including activity of the user, if there was any. We're now going to add the Gritcher token to this user. We click on the Provision button, select the Gritcher token type, and click on Provision. This will send the token to the email corresponding to the user on file per the Active Directory attributes. We can customize this attributes to point to any Active Directory attributes, or we could also manually reissue this to another email. If we look at the email, the user can now initiate the enrollment process from this link. Another way to provision tokens to the users is by bulk automatic assignment. This is done through the use of a policy. We're now going to show you how an automation policy is configured. You would want to click on the Automation Policies module and click on Provision Rules. You can then create a new rule. You would give it a rule name, pick the token type, and other options that may be relevant to you. In this case, we will leave them to default. We're also going to specify which group we want to apply this policy to, so that when the users are synchronized to the MFA secure user group, they will automatically receive a Gritcher provisioning email to the email on file. All we have to do now is to click on Add to complete the process. And the rule has been created. Now this means that at every 5 to 10 minutes after the user has been added to the platform, this rule will evaluate if the user is part of the group, and in that case, send him a provisioning email with the token type associated to that rule, in this case, GridShare. Next, we will show you how the user enrolls this token. Now that the user has received a token provisioning email, he may start the self-enrollment process by opening the link found within the email. Upon opening the link, a GridShare image is shown to the user to start the activation process. The user must select a pattern and not consider the numbers or letters within the cells. That means that the user will need to remember in which order and which cells are being picked as his pattern. Again, the numbers and letters should not be remembered. In this example, we will use the pattern shown on the screen. This equates to the letters M, D, U, F. The user clicks Next to complete the registration process and activate that token. On the next attempt, the user will use the pattern to authenticate to any resource protected by this platform. In this portion of the demo, we will show you how to log into Windows 10 using your GridShare token. In order to do so, the user must either press Enter to generate the GridShare image or use the GridShare token link below. Once the grid is shown to the user must now generate the one-time code based on the pattern he defined during registration of this token. Per the previous part of this demo, the pattern corresponds to the numbers 7216. After entering the one-time code, the user now must enter his LDAP password. Assuming both steps are successful, the user now logs into the machine. Now that the user is logged into the computer, they can launch the VPN. After clicking on Connect, because the application Global Protect is protected by Safe and Trusted Access, the user login page is presented. The user enters his username. Then they are presented to enter their GridShare token. This is because of the access policy in Safe and Trusted Access. The user now enters his one-time code per the pattern they defined during the registration of this token. If you recall at the start of this demo, the pattern corresponds to the numbers 6, 3, 4, 9. And the user is connected. Next, we're going to show you how to change your pattern. Reset their pattern, the user can go to the self-service portal and click on the Reset PIP icon. Note that each of these modules can be turned off individually depending on your needs. The flow we're going to show you is assuming the user knows his pattern and wants to change it. But the self-service portal can be used to reset the pattern with another authentication method, such as a temporary code via email. We'll show you that in a few moments. For now, let's log in with the current token. In order to generate a GridShare image, the user will enter a blank passcode. Upon pressing on OK to log in, the user is presented with a GridShare image. The user enters his one-time code corresponding to the pattern he defined originally. In our example, this will correspond to numbers 5584. Now that the user has logged in, the user can change the pattern for a new one. In this example, we'll select the following pattern corresponding to the letters W, J, E, Y. And we can see that the pip reset was successful. We're next going to show you the example of the user resetting his pattern without having knowledge of the pattern itself, and assuming the organization has allowed the reset via email with a temporary code, they can use that flow. Given that this is a test account, all the different authentication methods are turned on, but they could be turned off on a need basis. In order to generate a temporary password via email, the user clicks the option and enters his username. Assuming the user ID exists, he will receive an email per the email on file. He can now retrieve the temporary signing password and use this to reset our pattern. We go back to the self-service portal and click on Sign In. When prompted to authenticate, we can use this temporary password just as a token. We enter the username and enter the temporary passcode received via email. Now that we're logged in, we can reset the pattern to any pattern we'd like. Let's pick the original pattern we had when we started all of this. This would correspond to the letters G, A, P, K. And we can see that the reset was successful. In the last section of this demo, we're going to show you how to remove a user from SafeNet Trusted Access and how would the experience be for the user afterwards. In order to remove a user, we open the Active Directory Users and Computers and find the user. We right-click on the user and expand its properties. From the Member Of tab, we find the group where the user was added to the synchronization agent. In our example, this corresponds to the MFA secured user group. We remove this user from the group. We now can wait up to 20 minutes for the synchronization agent to complete its cycle, or force a sync by opening the agent. We now can force the sync by stop and start. Confirm that the synchronization has now completed. The user is now disabled from authenticating to any resource. However, the user continues to exist for 24 hours. This is a safety option that can be turned off if needed. The principle behind this is if you ever wanted to re-add the user to the group, you could do so within a 24-hour period and not have the user re-enroll. The token that was previously assigned to the user and acted to that user will continue to function without any user involvement. We can confirm that the user is still in the console. However, if we were to try to authenticate with this user, whether using the self-service portal or any of the resources shown before, the authentication will fail. For instance, if we do it from the self-service portal, we see that the grid is not generated. Instead, there is a generic random response saying please enter your challenge. The user will not be able to log in. If we try the same from the Palo Alto VPN, we can see that the user is no longer able to log in. Finally, the same applies with the Windows logon. The user is not allowed to log in. From the logs, we can confirm that the user is marked for deletion. This is the end of our demo. Thank you for watching.